Let's jump right into today's explainer. We're looking at a pretty wild power dynamic out on the African savanna. Look, we all know lions fear almost nothing, right? They're the absolute apex predators. But today, we're going to figure out why the undisputed king of beasts will actively go out of its way to avoid one specific, massive animal.
It's honestly a super captivating mystery. Why on earth would a highly coordinated, powerful predator be absolutely terrified of a creature that can barely even see? I mean, it sounds totally counterintuitive. But to figure it out, we've got to look at the biology, the sheer physics of it, and those deep survival instincts that kick in out in the wild.
Section 1. The Predator's Paradox.
To really wrap our heads around this fear, we kind of have to establish just how dominant lions usually are. When they work together in a pride, they're a highly coordinated machine. They routinely take down some of the absolute biggest, most dangerous creatures out there. We're talking massive, aggressive buffalo, incredibly resilient zebras, and honestly, even armored predators like crocodiles. A lion pride is just insanely lethal. They can handle prey way, way larger than what a single lion could ever dream of taking on alone.
But there's a catch. Think about a zebra for a second. That's a completely manageable, everyday target for a pride, right? Now compare that to the giant exception to the rule, a 2-ton, fully armored rhinoceros. The whole dynamic of the hunt completely flips when we go from their standard prey to this absolute unit of an animal. It is just in a totally different league.
Section 2. Anatomy of a juggernaut.
2 tons. Just let that sink in for a second. That's what a fully grown rhino can weigh. That makes it several times heavier than even the absolute biggest, most muscular male lion on the savanna. And you know, in a physical fight, mass dictates momentum. So right out of the gate, the lion is at a staggering, almost comical disadvantage.
And it gets worse for the lion. The rhino is covered in this incredibly thick skin that basically acts as literal body armor. It's so tough that a lion's main weapons, its claws and teeth, have a really hard time doing any serious damage. Oh, and if being a walking tank wasn't enough, the rhino has that devastating, massively powerful horn right on its face. It's essentially a living fortress.
Section 3. The charging tank.
Now, physical size and armor, that's really only half the story here. I mentioned earlier that rhinos have terrible eyesight, and yeah, that's completely true. But here's the thing, they overcompensate. Their sense of smell is highly tuned, and their hearing is incredibly sensitive. So they can pick up on threats way before a lion is even in position to strike. They might not see you perfectly, but trust me, they can absolutely smell and hear you coming.
And if they do feel threatened, the reaction is terrifyingly fast. We're talking speeds up to 50 kilometers per hour. Just imagine that for a second. You have a heavily armored 2-ton tank, and it turns and charges directly at you at 50 kilometers an hour. For a lion to just stand in front of that kind of force, well, that's literally suicidal.
Section 4. Risk versus reward.
And this brings us to a really fascinating pivot, from a pure physical fight to a biological math equation. See, for lions, hunting isn't about pride or ego. It's a strict calculation of risk versus reward. They aren't cowards. They're brilliant calculating hunters. They constantly have to weigh the caloric gain of a meal against the very real, very high probability of getting a broken bone or a fatal injury. If the risk is higher than the calories, the math just doesn't work.
Let's break down those odds. Going after a zebra or a wildebeest? That's a manageable risk, and the payoff is huge. Food for the whole pride. But an adult rhino? The risk level there is straight up fatal. While a zebra is an acceptable gamble, making even one tiny mistake against a healthy adult rhino will easily result in death, or broken bones that lead to death. It could wipe out multiple lions in a single, bad encounter.
Because of this deadly math, wildlife observers see something that's honestly kind of mind-blowing. They frequently see entire prides of lions, the literal kings of the beasts, just actively backing down and retreating when an angry rhino charges them. The lions run the numbers in their heads, they look at that 2-ton tank coming at them at 50 kilometers an hour, and they smartly say, nope, we're out.
Section 5. The rare exceptions.
Now, nature is super complex, right? So there's almost always an exception to the rule. And simply put, hunger changes the rules. When food gets really scarce on the savanna, that biological math we just talked about, it starts to warp. Pure desperation can actually force a pride to recalculate those deadly odds, mostly because the risk of starving to death suddenly becomes higher than the risk of that rhino horn.
But listen, even when they're absolutely starving, lions are incredibly strategic. They aren't going to just attack any rhino willy-nilly. It takes a huge pride working perfectly together. And even then, they strictly target young calves, or they isolate the weak and sick individuals. They know for a fact that a healthy, full-grown adult rhino is a battle they can't win, so they look for absolutely any vulnerability they can find. Ultimately, this whole dynamic illustrates a really profound truth about the animal kingdom. The fact that lions survive and thrive proves that true power out in the wild isn't just about having the sharpest teeth or being super aggressive. True power is having the wisdom to know exactly which battles you need to avoid. I mean, even kings know when a fight just isn't worth it.
So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a question to consider. We've seen the natural armor, we've done the biological math, and we've learned that the undisputed king of beasts will literally turn tail and run. Knowing all of that, would you ever dare to stand your ground against a charging rhino? Definitely something to think about as you keep exploring the incredible dynamics of the wild.